Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Andy.
And just want to remind everybody that you can find us on YouTube or listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon Music.
Yeah.
Also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just search Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies.
Yeah.
Find us.
There we are.
Be part of our community.
Yes.
So this week, we are going to be returning to a franchise that had been long dormant.
Yeah.
But the people who made it have been active in Hollywood, so I guess they decided to use some of their clout to say we want to return to this world. So we're talking about, of course, 28 years later.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of things. One, I'm going to use a disclaimer right off the bat because I know that online there is debate over whether or not this is technically a zombie movie. We're going to call these infected people zombies throughout this whole podcast. If that's the type of thing that bothers you, I'm going to be honest, this probably isn't the podcast for you.
Right.
Keep listening anyways.
They're zombies.
But but we got to start here. What was your relationship to the first two movies in the series, which was 28 days later and then 28 weeks later?
Honestly, I got to thinking about it, and it's not as strong as I thought it was. I mean, they were, I saw them, I liked them, but I don't just don't quite have the passion for those movies that a lot of people I see like online or in different kind of movie circles do. And I don't really know why. It's not out of like I don't think they're that good. I think they're really well done movies. And I enjoyed them. I'm not trying to sound like I didn't, but I'm not like I know everything about the 28 days, years, weeks, months later franchise, they're just movies that I enjoyed. And that's really about as far as it goes, honestly.
Yeah. So, 28 days later, I saw when it came out on, video for rent or something like that when it first came out. And I remember liking it, but also being a little like, it was good, but I remember at the time being like, it's weird that it's a zombie movie, but the bad guys in the end were like these military guys. It didn't even end up being about the zombies in the end. And that just kind of like threw me off. And I didn't revisit it until this week when I was prepping for this movie. I revisited it, and I'll say I enjoyed it more this time, knowing that going in.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm okay with this choice. But the first time I saw it, it just felt like I thought I was watching a zombie movie. Why is the villains not the zombies? And then 28 weeks later, I had not seen until this week when I watched it for prep.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was a worthy sequel. I thought it was really good. But I also didn't realize till I was watching it that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland were not involved in it. It was a whole new writing, directing team, pretty much a whole new cast.
Yeah.
No, entirely
new cast. Yeah.
And usually when that happens, it's like, oh, this sequel's doomed.
No,
Everybody from the original is out.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a really solid sequel. So it made me just all the more excited for this one. So let's talk a little bit about the summary, and then we'll jump into what we thought about this movie. So 28 years after the rage virus outbreak, England has become a post-apocalyptic world unto itself, quarantined from the rest of the world in order to contain the virus. We follow Spike, a young man who is part of a survivors community. Spike's father takes Spike on his first trip out of the safety of the community and into the mainland, where the infected still roam. While there, Spike learns of a doctor who lives deep in the mainland, but is told that he is crazy. But because of his mother is terribly sick, and after a fight with his father, he decides he must risk it all by taking his mother to the mainland in search of the doctor. With only his basic training, Spike now has to brave this expedition through a myriad of dangers. Andy.
Yes.
Was 28 years later good?
I'm kind of lukewarm on it. I just didn't feel to me like it was really necessary. I think there are cool moments in it. I did not dislike it. It just landed in that weird kind of podcasting zone for me where I'm not down on it, but I'm also not I'm not over the top enthusiastic about it either. And it just kind of lands in that area of like, that's pretty good. And that's about all it did for me, quite honestly.
Okay. Andy, I thought this movie was a disappointment.
Yeah.
And honestly, I kind of can't believe that that's the movie that I just saw.
Yeah.
I
felt like a lot of years of build up and stuff, and then the movie happened, and I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it felt to me like a real departure from the first two installments. Now I get that when you have a time jump both in the story and in real life,
Yeah.
there's going to be like bound to be some distinction. It can't feel exactly like the original two. But that said, the first two I just felt like had a crazy energy to them, and this one I feel like never
Never went into that next gear,
built
did it?
any momentum.
Yeah. You know what the craziest thing to me is? I think the weakest part of this movie is the screenplay. And it's written by my guy, Alex Garland.
So literally my next note is I can't believe this was written by Alex Garland.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So here's the thing. It's like, we live in 2025 when movies can look pretty much flawless. So when these zombies, the infected, are getting arrows to the head and the neck and blood's flying anywhere, like like we always say, like not to sound like a weirdo, but it's like, no, that looks pretty cool. But it just doesn't happen enough, maybe, or it just happens and you're just like, oh, okay. They just bow and arrowed some more infected, and then they just kind of kept going on their way. And every time I thought like an infected was going to leap out of the shadows and stuff, they did. Like nothing was real suspenseful. And yeah, it just is kind of like, okay. But like I said, I don't want to be like, this is a bad movie.
Right.
Like I think there's some good performances in it. It looks great. It's a cool idea. Like we're on this island unto ourselves. We have to cross this kind of pathway when the tide is low. Like I can get into all of that, but it just didn't amount to a whole lot to me.
Yeah, I had this at the end of my notes, but I'll go ahead and share it now. Some positives, because I got to the end and I was like, it's gonna sound like I just totally hated this movie. And that's not the
let's
case.
do some positives.
But,
good idea.
You're right. I thought it had some really cool visuals, and you mentioned the one, like particularly the scene of the father and son being chased by the Alpha across that, like the walkway or the bridge, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's partially covered by water. Everything about it just was very visually.
That's good. Just
stunning.
Good movie making. They're being chased. Open the gate. Open the gate. Like that's always gonna work.
Yeah. And then even though I ended up not liking really where the story went, I was enthralled because I didn't know where the story was going to go, and I thought anything could happen. Now I'm kind of like you. In each scene, in each moment, like I felt like the things that happened, there's no like big surprises in the moments, but as far as like, there was 3 different times where I was like, oh, this is what the movie is now. Oh no, this is what the movie is. And that sort of thing kind of, it kept me interested, even though by the end I didn't feel like it paid off.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So back to Alex Garland and just saying I couldn't believe it was written by him, because usually you said it, we associate with him with just being like wicked smart.
Yeah.
And there are smart flourishes throughout this, but in the end, at the end of the movie, I looked back and I said, was that kind of a dumb movie? And like that's just something I never normally think with Garland movies.
Right.
I've never.
They feel so high
concept,
concept and high intellect.
Yeah. That even like, I'm not even saying that every Garland movie works for me.
Right.
He did the movie Men a few years ago, and that was a weird movie. It doesn't really work for me.
We talked about that when we did Civil War.
It felt like a smart movie that just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
This one didn't have that feel. Now, here's what I really wonder, because Danny Boyle, I have not like a real extensive relationship with him. I've seen a handful of his movies. I think he's talented, but he's a weird guy. He directs weird movies. And so I would love to get a hold of the screenplay and see how much of the weirdness is there on the page, or how much of the weirdness is Danny Boyle reading it and going, yes, now how can I make that weird?
Yeah.
Because, it just, so many little weird choices, and I don't know who to attribute them to.
I don't know. I mean, you would think that Garland and Danny Boyle have a good working relationship. So you would think
work together a lot.
Yeah. So I couldn't imagine like one of them kind of trying to undermine the other or anything like that. It feels like it's very much a collaboration.
Yeah. So some examples when I say about it being weird, because a lot of people haven't seen this. One example is they do a lot of like splicing in old footage, film footage or documentary footage or whatever, like in these scenes.
That looks like it's from 300 years ago.
Yes. And even watching it, I was like, I don't necessarily hate this, but it's weird. And so you got this early scene of when they're walking off of their little island on that stretch, and it's splicing in old footage with them walking with that poem that's from the preview, the Boots poem. And it's like, it all looks cool, but I was like, I feel like I'm watching a music video, not a movie. It's just images, sounds, and style.
And quick cuts.
Yeah, yeah, so it was a little disorienting at the beginning. You know, like, okay, we're making choices here.
We
that's
are.
what I was thinking. All right, let's talk about this, because this is one thing that I wonder about. Like, again, with Alex Garland, Danny Boyle, maybe just the designers, the visual designers on set. When you're like, okay, smart decision. Like, these zombies, basically 30 years in. Doesn't make sense that they would bother with clothes at this point. Of course not. Is it wildly distracting that every zombie running after people is naked? Yes.
Look, I think we should just address the elephant in the room. There is so much zombie genitalia in this movie.
Yes.
It is incredibly distracting.
Yes. And I get it. Like, you're probably like, no, it just doesn't make any sense in our head for them to still be bothering with clothes after all this time. It's like, I get that.
I get it, but it's...
I don't know. Like,
it would be so much less distracting to me if they just had a sheet wrapped around themselves or something.
Give them the classic tattered, torn up clothes.
Or just
something.
Just give them just CGI some shadows in there or something. Like, there's a lot of things we could have done. It is incredibly distracting. I wondered if this was going to be talked about.
Yeah, I mean,
it's weirder if we don't talk about it, because it is such a part of the movie.
If someone's just like, I didn't notice.
Especially our guy, the alpha.
Yeah, Samson.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I will stop there, but holy cow.
Yeah, it was distracting. So that perfect thing to bring up, because that's the next thing on my notes, is like, I didn't love the whole alpha thing.
Yeah.
So, like, I get the idea, again, that the virus is evolving is the idea. But what are we, like, really saying with that? Are we saying that so these creatures are getting smarter and now they have a form of leadership and, and they're organizing? And I'm like, that kind of defeats, like, the whole thing that you love about the zombie movies, that they're just this mindless horde with no intellect, that just driven by their most basic instincts.
Right. Or if that's the route you're going to go. They don't really lean into it. It's just kind of like, yeah, he's the alpha. And it never really shows him like you don't get the scene of him like, kind of directing traffic or trying to ascend. Like, he doesn't do anything. I mean, he does stuff, but like he's the alpha. They say that, but like you don't really see anything that shows you like why he's the alpha, other than he's just big and rips people's heads off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going to go that route, go that route. And if you're not, don't. Yeah. But
there's a lot of having to kind of like ignore things in the previous two installments too to make this one make sense. And largely the fact that in the first two it's established that people are infected without people to feed on can only last for like, so many weeks or whatever before they just die of starvation. Yeah. It's like we're 30 years later, they never even attempted to explain like why they're still surviving. Yeah. And of course, now there's all these different kinds. You got these really fat, gross, slow ones. Yeah. Then you've got the fast ones, the alphas. Like, you got all these different kinds. Like, yeah. And it probably is the simple explanation is probably the most obvious one's probably the one that's true, is that we don't really have a way to explain this, so we're just gonna ask you to accept it. Like it's all science fiction bullcrap anyway. So, but it's just kind of weird. I was like, I expected them to have some sort of explanation for why this is still going on when it was so established in the previous one. Of course, also, we could talk about the fact that the second one ends with the idea that the virus is now spread throughout the world. And then this one, it jumps back to it's just in England with no explanation. Now, Alex Garland was in an interview. I read this in the trivia and said basically like his assumption is as soon as it started spreading in Europe, those places were nuked, and then they recontained it back to England. Okay, like fine.
That's fine.
And maybe you don't need to explain it because it might not have been able to come up naturally in any of the dialogue.
It just feel like exposition.
But at the same time, as a viewer, you're going, well, didn't we end with? And now we're just
kind of back.
Yeah. It's
a lot of this movie just feels like Danny Boyle and Alex Garland were just like, man, we want to show some zombies just get bow and arrowed again. So let's just make a movie where that happens. And then it was like, well, I guess we also have to come up with some other stuff too. And just nothing feels like it was real thought out to me.
Yeah. I suppose we probably should have done this earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and do spoiler alert now because we'll continue to get into stuff, and we don't want to ruin anything for anybody. But now that we've done that spoiler warning and given people a chance to click off if they need to, the zombie pregnancy just made me mad.
Okay, thank you. That was the stupidest part of this movie. And like, why would you write yourself into a corner like that? Like, hey, we had a zombie give birth to a baby. Kind of our whole existence in this last act of the movie depends on kind of being quiet and low key. So conveniently, this baby never makes a peep. It never cries, or if it does, there's no infected around. It's like, then why did you have a baby in the movie? Because it doesn't factor into anything at all.
Right.
It was done for no reason.
Yeah, it really didn't have much payoff, but also just, I mean, it raises the most obvious stupid questions, like, so the zombies are mating now? Like, again, that's not anything that makes sense with the... It's just weird.
And not. It's like, I don't care. I don't want to think about that. Yeah.
What would have happened if these humans hadn't been there and taken over the baby? What was the zombie going to do? And it's just questions I don't want to think about and don't want answers to.
Exactly. That baby is such a weight around the movie.
Yeah.
And then, luckily it doesn't happen until there's maybe, 25, 30 minutes left in the movie, would you think?
Yeah, man. It's
something like that, maybe.
And it's probably more than that.
It might be. But it just is like... You're just so, and then it does the thing where it's like, well, when we need the baby to not be in a scene, the baby's just off sleeping. So I just don't understand why they did that.
Yeah, I did think so. I thought the movie had some of its best moments when the character of Eric was around. He's the French soldier guy who shows up. That was a little quickly like. When they first showed up, I was like, what is happening? Mm-hmm. And I get like, then they were going to explain it later, but I was just like, I'd like a little more understanding what's going on. But the reason I think it works so well with Eric was not so much because his character was so entertaining, but it was the contrast. It was the idea that he was this person from the just regular world. The rest of the world was going on normal. I mean, he has an iPhone. And then
he's got a girlfriend.
Finding out, because when you start this movie with just the people on the island, you kind of just like, okay, like I guess this is what normal is in this world. And you go, oh no, like
there is
abnormal as it would be for us watching. And, everything that Eric says that we understand, all these references to things that Alfred's like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, like they're so basic. He really is growing up in a world without any of the things that we know about. And so I thought that was really cool. And I wish maybe that would have been more of like a focus of the movie and the relationship. But they really Eric didn't stick around for too long.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. The best parts of the movie were Spike and him together.
Yeah.
And just their interaction and him being like so annoyed, but also like, well, we're here. Like, we're going to stick together. And he's like, he even got some humor. Like, he's carrying Spike's mom around and then she gets up and he's like, she can walk? Like, that was the best part of the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's a really short part of the movie.
Yeah, or when Eric shows him the photo on his phone, he's like, "This is my
girlfriend."
What's
wrong with her face?
And, yeah,
that was great. That was absolutely the best part of the movie, and that's where you're like, "There's some good Alex Garland writing right there."
Exactly. All right, so this movie, and this is something that happens in a lot of high concept movies. This movie tries to be something besides just a zombie movie, right? Like, it's a zombie movie, but it's also like this family drama movie with a tragic illness and stuff. I'm all for realism. I did not need a subplot where a main character has cancer and cognitive deterioration.
No.
So the first two movies are downers. Like, obviously, but they're downers because they're about like the flaws of mankind and like what bad decisions people make leads to, and then like what people will do when basically they're living in a world of chaos and there's no more rules. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the downer. That's all you need in a zombie movie. Mm-hmm. This one's like, okay, all of that, but also like, hey, even if you've survived the zombie apocalypse, you still have to deal with cancer and memory loss and all that. It's like, I don't need that added layer of like dourness to this movie.
It was like a hat on top of a hat.
Yeah. And really, ultimately, the movie becomes more about that than even the zombies.
It absolutely does. And I mean, honestly, like Jodie Comer, someone we like and we've talked about on this podcast, is really minimalizing what she can do, I think.
Yeah.
She plays the mom.
Yeah, let's talk through some of these people. So we'll kind of run through some of the talent. Let's start with Danny Boyle a little more as the director. So Danny Boyle, he directed The Beach in 2000. Sunshine in 2007, Slumdog Millionaire in 2008, for which It won Best Picture, and he won Best Director.
Yeah.
He directed Steve Jobs in 2015, which is a personal favorite of mine. So, like I said, he's been working a while.
He's done some good movies.
And he's always like got a very unique
Yeah.
vision in his movies, I guess you could say. And one thing that I will say for this movie that, I mean, is a compliment, even if it's, again, I didn't love everything they were doing. It's a very confident movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a movie that's like, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, get on board. And
like every time an infected gets shot with an arrow, we're going to do this weird, like, jump edit thingamajiggy. And it's like, it kind of reeks of like, this is our movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and say this too from the trivia. One of my favorite bits of trivia from this movie is that this film was shot primarily using an iPhone Pro Max 15, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And first off, like, that's cool, but also, is it the worst thing ever? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like, what do we really need to be shooting movies on iPhones?
Yeah.
I think what sounds so cool about it is it makes ordinary people feel like I could shoot a professional quality movie because I have an iPhone.
Yeah. Don't fill people's heads with these false ideas.
Don't ever fool yourself into thinking that between the experts who are using it and the significant resources in post-production that they have, that doesn't make all the difference in the world.
Correct. There's not just some random guys like, oh, I've got an iPhone now.
Yeah.
Time to make a movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, cool of Danny Boyle to be trying things.
Fine,
and doing
whatever.
That, but also, like, I don't know, like, it just sounds cooler than it really being necessary.
Correct.
Like, my enjoyment of the movie does not change one bit going, oh, that's cool that they shot it on an iPhone.
No, that may have been a cool gimmick like 15 years ago, but now, it's just like, okay, like, I don't really care what you shot on, just make a good movie.
Yeah, I guess I am glad that being shot on an iPhone, it still did look good, like look clean and clear on the film, because that's one thing about when you watch 28 Days Later now. It was one of the first movies shot entirely digitally on like little, I guess, handheld cameras. And I'm watching it, and it's funny. I saw somebody comment like on social media somewhere. They're like, "If you watch 28 Days Later, you don't have to try adjusting your like settings. That's the clarity. That's what you're
how
dealing
it looks.
with.
It looks very underground.
So I appreciate this one looking really
does look good.
But and then we talked about writer Alex Garland, who, as we said, worked with Danny Boyle several times. He wrote The Beach, or at least the novel, The Beach, not the screenplay. He wrote 28 Days Later and Sunshine, all of which Danny Boyle directed. Not as much known, he did write the movie Dread in 2012, which is a good,
actually a
underrated,
secretly
fun
good movie.
Action movie. Yeah, and like people are like, I can't believe it's that good. Well, one of the reasons is Alex Garland wrote it.
Yeah, it's really good.
And then we get into the movies that he started directing as well as writing. Ex Machina in 2015.
One of your favorites.
One of my favorites. Annihilation in 2018. Men in 2022. He did Civil War in 2024, which was your favorite movie that year. It was in my top 5. Did Warfare this year. So
which could very well be in my top 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, Garland, very accomplished writer. And he wrote this movie after doing all these movies that he directed. Danny Boyle actually gave him the like option, do you want to direct this movie? And Garland said, no, I've just gotten done directing several movies. I want to just focus on the writing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'd be curious to know what an Alex Garland directed 28 years later would have
definitely
looked like.
I would too. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just weird to say. Like, I already said it. I like Danny Boyle. I like a lot of his movies. And yet I feel like probably most of the things I don't like about this movie are Danny Boyle. Just based on like the history of their filmographies and the things I didn't like, and thinking, who's this strike me more as? Does this feel like more the stuff I've seen from Garland, or does it feel more like the stuff I've seen from Boyle?
Yeah.
It feels more like the stuff I've seen from Boyle. But
I would agree.
I also want to just point out that Alex Garland has only been nominated one time for a writing Oscar that was for Ex Machina, which I think was deserved.
Absolutely.
It lost that year to Josh Singer and Tom McCarthy for Spotlight, which was a really good screenplay.
Yeah.
I would have given it to Ex Machina.
Same.
Also, I still don't understand the rules for original versus adapted screenplay.
Still confusing.
Adapted, they're like, obviously if you adapt it from like a book or something, but a lot of times, if it's any real life story, it's automatically adapted, which Spotlight was a real story, but it somehow wasn't adapted.
I know, it's so weird.
I don't know.
It's confusing.
Very confusing. All right. So let's talk about the cast.
Yeah.
So Alfie Williams plays Spike.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything yet. He's only got a couple IMDb credits. Correct. Like this is his first like big movie. If you see any of the previews or promotional materials for this movie, you would think Aaron Taylor Johnson movie. It's not. It's an Alfie Williams movie.
It's a complete Alfie Williams movie.
I actually made a note that I was like, I think that the SAG members should start a petition saying that the person who is actually the lead in the movie should be like, they should be obligated to have their name first on a poster or something. And we all know why it's not. Like, we know why the poster isn't leading with Alfie Williams.
No one knows
Nobody
who
knows
he is.
who that is. Everybody knows who Aaron Taylor Johnson is and Jodie Comer and Ray Fiennes. And this is something that's been done for decades in movies where, people will promote movies with the biggest name possible.
Yeah.
I will say this is not even the most egregious example of movies that have falsely promoted using somebody's name that's not the actual lead in the movie.
Oh, yeah, it's been done worse.
But I do think that's something that probably should be cleaned up. I just feel bad for someone like Alfie Williams. Like, I'm starring in this movie. This may be the best starring role he ever has. I don't know.
He's not on the poster. He's hardly in the previews.
If you Google Alfie Williams 28 years later, just for the image search, you almost can't find an image of him that isn't him in the background of other characters.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But yeah, I thought the kid actually did a really good job.
I thought he was really good.
I don't know how old he is in real life, and in the story, I think he's supposed to be like 12 or something.
12, yeah. Because I think Jodie Comer says that. He's only 12. You usually take them on their first hunt when they're 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job.
Yeah. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson, who you would think is the star of the movie.
Not at all. He's in the first act, and then he just disappears.
Yeah. So Aaron Taylor Johnson's been around for a while. He was in Kick-Ass, was kind of his breakout in 2010. People, if I was trying to let just the average person know who he is that doesn't know who he is, I'd probably say Avengers: Age of Ultron. He was Quicksilver for a minute in the MCU.
Yeah.
He was in Bullet Train a couple years ago, which I felt like started sort of the revitalization of his career. Mm-hmm. And then he was in Kraven the Hunter last year, which
that's unfortunate.
We all
for
thought
him.
he needs a good movie to follow up and redeem that. Which, granted, he was a supporting role in Nosferatu, which was a good movie.
Yeah,
so,
he was, and he was good in that. I thought.
I thought he did a good job in this one, but most importantly, I think for this one was that he looked the part.
Yes,
he just. You give him, he's got that long hair. You put him in that.
He's convincing.
That hunting gear and with the bow. And
when he's hitting these zombies with arrows, you buy it.
Yeah. But his character did make me think. One key thing that is very Alex Garland writing is that Alex Garland's almost never concerned with his characters being likable.
Yeah.
He just wants them to be interesting. And so Aaron Taylor Johnson's playing this dad who, realistically, he's not a complete scumbag, but he's kind of a scumbag.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, he does kind of take care of his wife, but she's sick, and you can tell he's just like worn out and fed up with it. He can't really do anything about it.
Yep.
And he's like does care for his son, but he's hard on his son. He's cheating with this other woman. There's all this stuff where it's like he feels like a real dude because he's a very flawed character, and I don't even know if I'm supposed to like him or not like him.
Right.
And that feels very Alex Garland.
Yeah, and Aaron Taylor Johnson is good at that.
Yeah.
So there's a scene where they end up trapped somewhere, and Spike's like, "Oh, this is my fault." And he's like, "No, Spike," and it's like he feels like a good, loving dad. But then when Spike confronts him a little bit, you buy him too, where it's like he loses. Like, I thought it was really good, just not really acting, but just a good character beat when like Spike confronts him and he's walking downstairs and he just punches the wall.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not saying that's cool or whatever, but it's like it's just a good character beat. And Aaron Taylor Johnson pulls that off well, I thought.
Well, and right before it, because his son pulls a knife on him and tells him to get away, and he snatches the knife from the son and like closes it,
and then hands it back to him.
But he's like shaking in his fist, squeezing it, because you can tell he's thinking like, I want so badly to maybe even just like chuck this thing. I don't know. But he knows in his head, like, if I want to win my son back, I've got to show him, like,
and he just
I
kind
still
of begrudgingly
so he begrudgingly, like, hands it back to him. Yeah. And then punches the thing on the way out. Like,
and so all that stuff's really interesting. And then he's just out of the movie.
And then he's out of the movie. Which, here's a criticism of the movie. Because it shows at the end, when that baby shows up and he knows the son dropped it off. And he goes running out like, is that my son? Like, I've been terribly missing him. When your son and wife went missing, it wasn't a mystery where they were going to be going. You knew the son was obsessed with this doctor, that you knew where he was. Like, you could have gone after him.
That is a huge flaw in the and that's where I'm like, I can't believe Alex Garland wrote this, because it's like that feels like something that he would be smarter than.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, dude, literally know exactly where they are going.
Yeah, and it's
like, hey, see that big smoke? That's where my son and wife are headed.
Yeah, and it's not like at any point he was written as somebody who would be too uncaring. It showed how much he's already risked his life for his kid when they're out there. and he's not he's not cowardly. This is what he does. Like,
Yeah.
So
it's just
I kept expecting him to pop back up as like, I tracked you down because I knew
it was
you were
so
going.
distracting because every time an infected showed up, you're like, Aaron Taylor Johnson's going to sneak it. Like, there's that one where Spike is sleeping in the big gross sump, and I'm like, here comes Aaron Taylor Johnson. Oh, nope, he's not there. That was strange.
Yeah. So Jodie Comer, who we've already mentioned, she's really only been in 3 things that I've seen. She's been in a lot, but there's a lot of like TV work or smaller things, and then she kind of blew up a few years ago. She was in The Last Duel in 2021, which I think continues to be a really underrated movie.
Yeah, I agree.
She was in Free Guy in 2021, and then The Bike Riders last year. And I think you said it, I think she's a really talented actress. This was such a weird part.
Yeah.
There's hard to know what to make of her job in it.
It's really hard. I mean, the first part of the movie, her job is to lay in bed and be sweaty and disoriented.
Yeah, with really weird camera angles and stuff.
Weird camera angles, and and then kind of in the middle of the movie, she's kind of just this anchor around Spike. Like, literally, he's trying to get her there. And then she's unfortunately saddled with having to be a part of that pregnancy scene where she just puts her hands up to the zombie, and I don't fault her for that. That's just a weird scene. And then, there's some nice moments with her and Spike, like, it's going to be okay. And she feels motherly and caring, but
it was a small moment. One of the best moments in the movie was when they were just lying there and they make a little face
at
each
other.
other.
That was great. Yeah, that's great. And you have to be able to pull that off. She was just saddled with just a really uninteresting, kind of somewhat, I wouldn't say poorly written character, but her character had poorly written, like we talked about, just kind of circumstances where it's like, I don't need this in this movie.
Yeah.
So then therefore, a lot of her job is to kind of just zone out, or dad, she thinks she's talking to her dad. And
so Spike's plan of taking his mom to the doctor, I get it. He's a 12-year-old. He's probably not, he's not gonna think everything through. But I was like, wouldn't it be much more practical to sneak in off on your own, try to find the doctor, and force the doctor to come back to her, than take this woman who's like into the most dangerous land?
Yeah,
and
like,
she doesn't even know where she is half the time.
I mean, at the beginning of the movie, it's definitely like, she can't get out of bed.
Yeah,
she literally doesn't know what day it is, and then it's like, go find the doctor and get him to come to. Then that's what I'm saying. The screenplay is just the weakest part of this movie.
Yeah. Then Ray Fiennes, who shows up for like the last third of the movie, maybe or so. Again, he's somebody who's been working for a long time.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But just, some of the things that are notable to me. I'm always going to champion The Constant Gardener, which came out in 2005. Not a lot of people have heard of that movie, but I think it's incredible. An incredible Ray Fiennes. Most people, again, if I'm trying to get the average person to know who he was in 4 different Harry Potter movies as Voldemort from 2005 to 2011. And then recently he did The Menu in 2022, which is a really good movie. And
he's Schindler's List. I bet a lot of people would know that.
He was in Conclave last year. Really popular guy. I was a little disappointed with his character.
Yeah.
Just because, and this is...
Because you want him to be just so unhinged.
A fault of the previews, I think, like in presuppositions I had, but just the glimpses you give in the previews is like, we're getting Ray Fiennes playing like this really BA character.
Survivalist.
He's gonna be he's gonna be kind of unhinged, like you said. They describe him as crazy.
And you just really don't get that at all.
And then he shows up, it's like, he's actually just sort of like this like really calm, tender guy
who dyes himself in iodine.
Who's just like that's the other thing. In the previews you think like, he's kind of like blood covered, but no, it's
just
dyed in iodine. And he's just really into his kind of weird art project.
Yeah. It really feels like, and I could be off here, maybe this is just the vibe that I was getting. It really feels like whether it's Garland Boyle or Garland and Boyle together, really thought those bone and skull like towers were way cooler than they actually were, I thought. I just was like, oh, okay. Like that just didn't really do a whole lot for me. And I felt like they seemed to think like that was supposed to be some kind of just major set piece of this movie.
Yeah. I'll say this for Fiennes. I think when I imagine just like a basic replacement no-name actor in this role, I think it's immediately one of the most forgettable roles. Like, okay, this guy shows up as a doctor. He doesn't really do much. He delivers some lines and gives the bad news. But Fiennes is maybe the best in the world at being able to like deliver a line in Latin and then share its meaning and having it sound significant. it's like him and Anthony Hopkins is the guys who sound the most like
I agree.
sophisticated and smart when they say things. When they play a doctor, you're like, well, of course.
Obviously, he knows she has cancer.
So really kudos to him for elevating a role that was
pretty nothing.
Yeah.
And again, I think the screenplay just doesn't do anybody any favors. Here's one of my biggest nitpicks with this movie. So the alpha, he's getting ready to kill him. Ray Fiennes shows up and hits it with like a morphine dart or something.
Yeah.
Why don't you just kill him?
Exactly. Now
they do that twice in that movie, and it's like, well, you guys all just look like morons now.
And this is where I go back to like, you kind of realize not only was my expectation wrong that he was going to be this like unhinged be a character, it's so opposite that like he doesn't even fight the zombies.
No.
That mostly puts him to sleep, and you realize that's the only weapon he has.
Yeah.
He names him, and then like even when he's talking to him, like you think at first because he's crazy. No, he's just like this gentle guy. Like, I just need to get that skull and spine that you've ripped out of the guy from you.
This guy wants to literally rip your head off. Kill him.
So yeah, I was thinking, why do you not just kill him? And I realized this character just doesn't. He doesn't fight the zombies, and maybe that's why they leave him alone for the most part.
And that's fine, but just as an audience, it just makes you like, well, this guy's stupid.
Yes. Yeah. Because you're like, that zombie's definitely going to come back at some point.
They established that this is the BA zombie. So then it's like, you're just going to turn against the character who has every opportunity to kill him and just doesn't.
Yeah. I have expected Spike just to be like, hold on one second. I'm just going to turn around and put a couple arrows in this guy's head.
Yeah.
Or how about this, Spike? I get you're probably not familiar with guns because you've grown up just with bow and arrow.
Yeah.
But you saw Eric use that gun. You know what it can do.
Sitting
when
right
he
in.
dropped it, go grab that thing.
Grab it.
Figure it out.
That was dumb.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
Yeah. So make sure I've got some more things to say.
We have a huge thing that we haven't talked about that I want to get into.
Yeah. So I think this is what we're going to get to now. So I already knew going into this that there are more installments coming.
I didn't realize the next one's due out in January.
I don't think I knew quite that soon.
No.
I was not prepared for how much this movie was going to feel like a setup movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest issue with it. When you watch it and looking back, you realize this was a setup movie. They're, I think, planning 3 of these. Mm-hmm. And this one was all like...
And that's why called like the Bone Temple or something.
That's why this didn't have any momentum build up. And I started thinking like, what was the climax of this movie? And...
Dude,
I don't even know if it's the climax, but you get to the end and we have one of the most radically bizarre shifts in tone I've ever seen in a movie.
All of a sudden, this turns into like a Monty Python movie or something. That was ridiculous.
So, oh my gosh, what's the actor's name? He was the guy that was the bad guy in Sinners just recently.
Yes,
Jack
O'Connell.
Jack O'Connell shows up in a really crazy costume.
Why?
And these other people show up, and this definitely felt Danny Boyle to me, I guess. Like, I don't know.
I thought this is almost laughable.
Granted, again, maybe Alex Garland's as guilty as possible, but what it called to mind is the beach and the scene where it goes like video game mode. Yeah. And it's like he's losing his mind, so he starts picturing everything as a video game. It's really weird, and the beach, you're like, what just happened to this movie?
Dude, this was so weird.
You're 97% through the movie.
Yeah.
That's had a pretty consistent tone, even if it's been weird.
Then all of a sudden it's like a
boom.
Like it's like a goofy, I don't even want to say slapstick. I don't even know if that's right. I don't know what it is. These guys all show up. They look like the Bee Gees or something like that. Like they're just dressed ridiculous. They're basically like circus performers.
I don't even know.
Or that's kind of the vibe I got. And it's just like, it is so tonally different than anything else in the movie. And like you said, it's literally the last scene in the movie. And I just thought it was like I was just sitting there with like a perplexed look on my face. And I was like, what was that? Movie over.
It makes me think Danny Boyle has to be a guy who enjoys himself some substances. And I don't mean the recreational ones. I mean hard ones. Because like,
dude, that
felt like a weird,
like an acid trip
idea to end the movie.
Yeah. They looked so weird and so different than anything or anybody else in the movie. They acted different than anyone else in the movie. It was so over the top goofy where it's like, oh, let me jump off this rock and do like 3 backflips. And then like it just, man, that did not work at all.
You know what it was filmed like? And this is so weird to say. At the end of 28 years later, that has such a unique visual style. All of a sudden, it was filmed like the old Power Rangers TV show.
Yeah.
That's
No,
what it
you're
looked
not
like.
wrong.
Ultra violent, but the Power Rangers TV show.
Yeah, it was just, man, was it goofy. And then it's like, oh, you find out that the Jack O'Connell character is the character from the very beginning of the movie. And you're like, okay, so what?
It was so, but also like it threw me off, and I was like, I guess I don't know why I assumed. I kind of assumed Aaron Taylor Johnson was that character because you go from like that kid runs off,
Yeah,
and the next
and then
thing
you see
you're
Aaron
following
Taylor
Aaron Taylor Johnson. So it kind of pulls the
No, instead it's this guy who you don't meet until there's 2 minutes left in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, it was bad. I that's got to be a contender for worst scene of the year so far.
Yeah, and then so that raises the question: we're getting another one. How am I supposed to feel about the next one coming out?
I don't know.
I'll tell you this: like, I'll see it, but I'm going in way more skeptical than I am optimistic.
Absolutely.
This one I was pumped, and now it's a disappointment. Like, I guess sometimes low expectations are a benefit, so maybe the next one will be like, so I went in with bad expectations.
And this was pretty cool.
And
yeah.
it surprised me. But man, yeah, like, I don't know. I guess we're going to be traversing around with that crowd.
I don't want to hang out with that
crowd. They were in the movie
crowd.
for all of 3 minutes, and I was like, that was 3 more minutes than I want.
Yeah, I was like, every one of these people are annoying to me.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. This was a strange movie. That was a wildly strange ending. And yeah, it's weird to me that just in a few months we're gonna get another one. And I was looking, I did a little research. I mean, the Spike's in it, Aaron Taylor Johnson in it, Cillian Murphy's in it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Cillian Murphy also was like an executive producer on this one.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It was all just strange. And again, I don't want to be like, man, this movie sucked. Because it didn't. Like, I was like, oh, that was cool, or that was cool, or, this kid's acting well, and Jodie Comer's a good actor, even though her character's stupid. But, yeah, just a lot of flaws in this movie.
Absolutely. So, one last good bit of trivia that I liked, and this is referencing something we already talked about, but the trailer, this is what the trivia says, the trailer features the distinctive recording of the poem Boots by Rudyard Kipling, read by the actor Taylor Holmes in 1915. The poem's repetitive rhythm imagines the march of British soldiers during the Boer War, and this recording of the poem is used by the U.S. military to simulate the psychological distress of being held captive. I don't know about that last part, but I'll say this. Great use of that poem in the trailer, and it has the early lead for me for trailer of the year.
It was an incredible trailer.
And not coincidentally, the title of trailer that was better than the movie so far this year.
I mean, that's why I was so into this movie, because I was like, man, that is an awesome trailer. Yeah. And then, the trailer is way better than the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just thinking back at the trilogy now that it is. There are things in the first two, like several things I can point to and just be like, that's awesome. That's something I'm going to remember for a long time.
Not a lot in this.
And there's not in this. I mean, the second one, which I just saw again just recently, I'm thinking about that way more than I'm thinking about this one. I'm thinking about, the snipers having to shoot all the people running out of the building because they don't know who's infected and who's not. I'm thinking about the chopper flying through the field and just the blades chopping down the zombies. I'm thinking about the great scene of Jeremy Renner's character having to get out of the vehicle, knowing what he's doing. The gas is everywhere because they're gassing the town, and he pushes the vehicle, winks at the kids as he pushes them off, and then gets flamethrowed by and like those are all beats that are way more like impactful and memorable than anything that happened in this movie.
Even like in the second one, they're in like a subway tunnel or something, and it's the same kind of gimmick where it's like they're only being able to see, what do they have, like night vision goggles or something?
Yeah, they have one gun with a night vision scope, and the other
and that's done really well. And then in this one you get, which it just kind of randomly cuts to, you get like these army guys, in the dark, and that's when it's like I knew exactly when that infected person was going to jump out. That's not even done very well in this movie. So it's a bummer.
It is.
I was looking forward to this, and I really have no intention of really ever revisiting this movie.
Yeah. All right, let's end on a more positive note. Mm-hmm. So, because this is a zombie movie,
it is a zombie movie.
We decided we're going to do our Mount Rushmore of zombie movies, and I guess I'll lead out for us. I feel like your list is probably going to be more respectable because you are more of a horror movie fan. You've probably seen more of zombie movies than I have.
Maybe.
Because I was looking through some of the I Googled it. Like, what are And a lot of the popular ones, like, yeah, I haven't seen those. I know about those, but so not surprisingly, my first couple entries are more comedic. So Shaun of the Dead, kind of a classic.
Yeah,
You know,
I know what your next one's going to be.
It's Shaun of the Dead is one that I like just as much in like the theory as the actual movie.
Yeah.
Like I do actually enjoy the actual movie, but I love like how deliberate and detailed they were, and you can watch like these things you missed in it, and like
It's a really
it's
smart
a really
movie.
smart movie. My next one you could guess is
Zombieland.
Zombieland. Yep. I mean, just give me Woody Harrelson being
Oh my
a crazy
gosh.
cowboy fighting zombies.
That's really all you need.
Yeah. And then my last two, I was a little torn on. I went with World War Z.
Yeah.
Is a movie that I really enjoyed when I watched it, but honestly, I haven't revisited. I keep thinking I need to rewatch
I
it.
haven't seen that one in a while either.
And then for my final one, I actually decided to go with 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah.
And I was torn between 28 days and 28 weeks. And I just, maybe it's because, again, I just recency bias, but I just really enjoyed 28 Weeks Later, which is so weird to say that there's a trilogy where two of them were written by Alex Garland.
And you want
directed
like
by
the one
Aaron
that's
Boyd,
not.
And I went with the one that's not.
I know. It's weird. Maybe Garland and this subject matter just are not a good combination. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's strange. All right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear your.
Well, I'm going to go. I also have Zombieland.
Okay.
Because I'm a horror guy, but I do, when done well, I do love a good horror comedy. And I agree with you completely. Just give me crazed cowboy hat wearing, shotgun wielding Woody Harrelson. There's also a scene where a piano just gets dropped on a zombie.
Yeah.
It's one of those like, you know, like you're, as an audience, you're so in on the joke the whole movie. It's got one of the all-time clever cameos with Bill Murray.
Yes.
That's all just incredible. I'm going to go 28 Weeks Later also.
Okay.
I don't mind having that on there. I actually realized while looking through my list, I don't like a lot of zombie movies that people seem to like a lot. So I had 28 Weeks Later, Romero's Dawn of the Dead, which is the one inside of the mall.
Okay.
He's done a lot of dead movies, but that's an unbelievable movie, and it actually is. You know, Romero's one of those guys that people think of him as like this gore and all that stuff, but he's actually, I think he was a pretty smart guy, and that was a movie all about like consumerism, and I think that's the right way to say it. But yeah, it's just a really smart, and it is insanely violent. It's like an unrated movie. It's crazy over the top violent, but it actually has something to say. My number one zombie movie, I'll be interested to know if you've ever heard of this, Return of the Living Dead.
I've heard of it, but not seen it.
It is unbelievable. I would recommend that you watch it because it is, to me, one of the ultimate horror comedies.
Okay.
It is 80s. It is kind of sleazy in a lot of ways, but it is a ton of fun. And I think I'm right on this. I think it invented the zombies run trope. I think I'm right about that. I think it was the first movie where zombies weren't just like these lumbering oafs that, you know, just ran into the wall or walked into the wall and stuff. These are like smart, intelligent zombies, and it's a blast. I would highly recommend you watch it.
Okay.
Always been one of my favorite movies.
All right. That's, you know, I take your recommendation seriously.
Listen, I'm not saying it's high concept,
Right.
but it's a ton of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will have to check that
Yeah,
out.
a classic in my opinion.
Yeah. It's funny to me that like I don't think, if you ask me like, are zombies interesting? I'm like, no, they're like the least interesting of possible monsters. So I'm kind of surprised that there's even like 4 movies that I could pick out being like good quality. Because if you ask me to do that with some other ones, like give me the best 4. We talked about it. There's not a lot of good werewolf movies.
Right.
There's not a lot of good vampire movies, really.
Right.
You know, then I would say they're both way more interesting than zombies.
I would agree.
So for whatever reason, a lot has been mined out of
zombies. They just,
and of course we didn't even talk about I've not watched any of The Walking Dead. I've not watched The Last of Us, but like here are these shows, these successful shows that are also
all about zombies. I know.
It's kind of crazy.
It is crazy. So yeah.
All right.
You know what? So 28 years later was disappointing, but you know what wasn't disappointing to me this weekend? The 50th anniversary of Jaws.
There you go.
Because there's just been social media stuff everywhere about it, and that's been a blast.
Yeah. I do know it's coming back to theaters at the end of August, I believe, to celebrate its 50th. It's a little weird they didn't put it out like on the actual 50th.
I don't understand that at all, but whatever.
Yeah. Just while we're on the concept of not understanding what theaters do, I complain about this all the time, but I'm going to complain about it again. You almost can't see 28 years later in IMAX in our area.
Yeah.
Because all the IMAX showtimes are
Train Your
dedicated
Dragon.
to How to Train Your Dragon, a little bit of Elio. I think that's the name of the movie.
I think so.
And it's like, why? How to Train Your Dragon's already had the week. The only time you could see 28 years later in IMAX was at the Champaign AMC at a 10:30 at night showing.
Yeah. Like, come on.
Killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's make better choices about what we're putting on the big screen.
Please.
But that's okay. Once I saw it, I wasn't as mad that I didn't see it on the biggest screen because it was fine. But our big release for next weekend, I'm not saying it's going to be the next episode. We might find another episode to do.
You never know.
But the big week release for next weekend is F1. Yeah. I'm very excited for that one.
I'm very excited for 2 movies next weekend.
There's something else. What is it?
Megan 2.0.
Megan 2.0, that's right.
Don't think I'm not excited for that, because I am.
Well, it's going to be something.
It looks awful. It looks ridiculous, but I am excited.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing it too.
I really liked Megan 1. But yeah, F1 is one I'm going to be seeing. I'm going to be seeing in IMAX.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, until then.
See you next week.
See you guys next time.